If you are a mom or a grandma and you worry about your kids' relationship with food, you're going to love and get so much out of this episode. So many of us have done the hard work on ourselves or are working on our own health transformation. And maybe you've broken free from the dieting cycle and you found peace with food and transformed your health. But you're looking at your kids and you think, I don't want them to go through what I went through. How do I protect them? How do I help them without projecting my own stuff onto them? Well, today's guest is Kamy Moussavi, and he's doing something really special. Kamy is the founder of Step Together, a family-centered program that helps parents and children build healthier habits through emotional regulation, supportive routines, and sustainable lifestyle changes. His work focuses on ADHD, emotional eating, impulsive behaviors, and how the family environment shapes long term health and well being. And what I loved so much about Kamy's story is that he has lived this. He was the overweight kid and he struggled with food addiction and bulimia well into his 20s, despite being wildly successful as an engineer. And when he finally discovered the root cause of his own struggle, he made it his mission to help children and their families so that they don't have to go through that same pain. In this conversation, we're going to get into the real science behind why our kids are struggling or why we struggled as children with emotional eating. It's the dopamine piece, the ADHD connection, the role of family environment, and what we can actually do about it, not by putting pressure on our kids, but by showing up differently ourselves. This one is definitely going to hit home, and I'm so excited for you to hear it. So, this is episode number 246 of the Healthy Real Food Podcast. Step together with Kamy Moussavi, fighting childhood obesity and helping our kids to find peace with food. This is the Healthy Real Food Podcast. I'm your coach, Erin Hart, a registered nurse and health coach who understands the struggle of feeling out of control around food and has walked the path of transformation. If you are a woman who feels powerless against your cravings and is ready to live your life with more energy, mental clarity, and purpose, there is hope. Here we believe that with God, a mindset of unstoppability, and consistent execution of a winning strategy, anything is possible for you. So if you're ready to find freedom from food addiction, take control of your health, and pursue your dreams with renewed energy, support, and accountability, let's go. All right, everybody, welcome to the Healthy Real Food Podcast. Today we're so looking forward to talking to Kamy Moussavi. Kamy, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Erin. It's a pleasure.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about who you are and the work that you do.
So, I am actually an engineer who turned into nutritional therapy because I was obsessed to figure out why I was struggling with food addiction and all the problems that I had until well into my mid 20s. Despite being so successful in one area of my life, which was engineering, I was still struggling with even bulimia or deeper emotional stuff that were tied to excess eating. And now, what I've created out of the success of having discovered what was the root cause of my own issues, I made it a mission to help children who are struggling with this, millions and millions of children who are struggling with excess weight, but also the deeper stuff behind it. And I founded this company called Step Together, where we have a team of coaches who help exactly this, helping parents help their children overcome this so that they don't suffer the same pain that we did. So I'm excited to talk about that today.
Oh, yeah, we are so excited to talk to you because so many of the people who listen to this podcast are mothers or grandmothers, and we worry about our kids. We've had our own issues with food, and we want to help our kids to avoid the pain that we've had to go through. So I think that this is such a relevant topic for our audience and our community. So I'm just going to read your bio because I think it's so neat. So it says Kamy is the founder of Step Together, a family-centered program that helps parents and children build healthier habits through emotional regulation and supportive routines and sustainable lifestyle changes. His work focuses on ADHD, emotional eating, impulsive behaviors, and how family environment shapes long-term health and well-being. Kami is passionate about helping families create calmer, healthier homes through practical systems that support both physical and emotional health. That's just amazing, the work that you do, and I love how you're so mission driven, going from engineering to this. Tell us a little bit about your background and why you're so passionate about this.
My background was actually funny. It's before this, I was on the other side of the equation. I was the person that parents probably didn't like because I was building video games for VR headsets. I'm sure parents here, their kids have been begging them for VR headsets or they even have them, and games like Gorilla Tag and things like that. So I was on the other side of this equation. I was working in technology, and I was the main reason why I learned about human psychology was basically how to get people to be more engaged to technology. So that was my entry point into this. But really, at the core of it is I was deeply struggling with excess eating and overeating and everything related to that from as far as I can remember. Like when I was 7, I remember being the overweight kid, and my mom's, she has her own history and also she has a PhD in public health, but she was teaching me how to count calories, and she was teaching me how to track my food, and she was teaching me basically, she was also trying to scare me. Sometimes she would show me, she would open up her medical books and she would show me people who lost their foot because of diabetes, and I'd be like, oh my god, no, I don't want that. And I stopped, and for a couple months I stopped eating anything bad, and then it just came back on and on. So this is something I personally struggled with my entire life, and I genuinely, at this point, all I want is to help people not go through that. And the beautiful thing is, I think I'm not alone. I think so many people just like yourself, that's really what matters, helping other people not go through what you did.
Oh, especially our children. I have 3 little girls. They're 10 oh, sorry, they're 13, 10, and 6, and what they are exposed to, food that they feed our kids at school, it's just a big challenge in our modern food environment for children who have normal human brains to try to regulate their emotions and to make healthy choices. It's so hard. Can you help us to understand the problem of how many children are struggling with this
It's
in our
in the tens
society?
of millions, if not more, children who have excess weight. But excess weight is just one of the symptoms. That's what we see it as. It's the
Mhm,
weight for some people who where their natural predisposition is to go to food for their dopamine surges, they go to
mhm.
food. Some other people, it's the technology. Some other kids, unfortunately, it's porn or other things that are terrifying for parents to even consider, right? So millions and millions of children today, they don't have the best support or even just an environment that, honestly, if you're a parent listening to this and you find yourself struggling with this, I'm not surprised, right? There's billions and billions of dollars poured into the industries of technology and food to make these things addictive, to
Right.
hijack your brain, the part of your brain, the dopaminergic circuits in your brain that are designed to just keep you alive. That's the main purpose. Keep you alive and survive and motivate you to do the things that are beneficial for you, which is as simple as eating food. But companies, they engineer food to hijack this. What is a goldfish cracker, actually? This a little thing
Yeah.
that looks cute and it's made to engage with the exact taste profile and the exact texture to be a dopamine bomb in your brain. So I'm not surprised that so many parents are struggling, and we're trying to make a dent. We're trying to help some parents protect their children so that they don't struggle as much.
Yeah. A lot of my clients and me, we've struggled with these issues that we've had with food since we were children. But our food environment now is so different than when we were even children, right? We grew up in the 80s and played outside all the time but things have changed so much for our kids. And I think it's so important to understand the issue and then understand how to help our children so that they don't have to struggle with this. There's so many consequences mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually from
Yeah.
all of the things that our kids are exposed to. So tell us, Kami, what are some ways that we can help our children? What do you do in your company?
So for us, the parents that come to us, they're basically seeing their child either be bullied or being looking in the mirror and not be happy about their weight, which is what they see. And they come to us and they're expecting that we're a nutritionist or we're a dietitian that's going to help them somehow say something to their kid to help them overcome this. But because I'm an engineer, I handle things completely differently. I'm actually looking at what is the most effective way to address this problem. And also from personal experience, I've been to these programs. I've been to the nutritionist as a kid. My mom, she spent thousands of dollars bringing me from this place to that place. But you know about Jenny Craig, you know about Weight Watchers. I'm sure the people with this, Octavia, all of them, Herbalife. I literally have done it all to see that the problem was never about me, myself. It was the entire environment around me. It was the stress that my family was experiencing. It was the eating disorder that my mom still has to this day, unfortunately, because of her own stress. And
Mhm.
so the focus being on me was counter-effective. Whenever I would lose weight, I would come back to the same environment and I would gain it back. And then I started beating myself up for it. And I think I'm a failure. And I think I'm so ashamed that I wasted my mom's time and energy to basically come back to the same place I started. So that's where we start. We start with the parents, and we want to understand exactly what's going on in parents' life. And sometimes it's funny. Parents are like, "Oh, you tricked us into couple counseling."
Right,
Yeah,
right.
and
But we
sometimes
can
it's
project our issues onto our kids. It's
100%. It's the anxiety that moms feels. As much as you might want to try to hide it and not leak it onto your kids, children, they're designed to pick it up. Your amygdala and their amygdala is in direct communication to basically understand if they're safe. As simple as that. Am I safe in my environment? I look at mom. How does mom feel? If mom feels worried or stressed, I should also be worried or stressed.
Mhm.
And this is before they're even conscious. From the time they're like 1 year old, they already have the system fully built in.
Yeah. It's amazing how the human brain works. And one of the things I worry about as a mom, because I had struggled with food addiction and binge eating disorder for most of my life, it was just such a big challenge. But back in 2020, I discovered the power of a real food lifestyle and I adopted a real food lifestyle. I lost over 100 pounds. I've kept it off for 5 years, but I was really careful. And it's something I still try to be really careful about with my little girls. Not to talk about food or weight or my body in a negative way. And my kids don't have the same issues with food that I do. A lot of us as moms can relate to that, but I think that they are prone to that and we have to be so careful. I lost 100 pounds and didn't even ever talk about it with my kids. They were small. They didn't even notice I lost 100 pounds. But it's hard with kids, not when we're changing and transforming our lives, we have to be careful not to create issues or project our issues onto them.
And it's very tricky because we also don't want mom to feel guilty as well. Like you had your excess weight because of a reason. It's not because you just liked food and you wanted to overeat. So
Mhm.
if I may ask, what was the root cause of your own excess weight?
Oh, I think it's right in line with what you were talking about before. It's emotional dysregulation. I didn't have skills for coping with the emotions and stresses of life. When I got married and became a mom and going through school and working full time, I just felt so stressed and worried about things. And instead of facing those issues head on or addressing my true emotional needs, I would just eat. Eat to feel better, eat to numb, to fill a void. And I didn't really have the tools and skills that I do now. But yeah, I think for a lot of people, it's not so much that we don't know what to do, it's just that we eat to soothe.
And it's often something you learn from your environment. It's not something that just comes on its own. So
Mhm,
often before even talking about the kid, we ask the parents if they have any addictive patterns in their life, whether it's food or cigarettes or alcohol or shopping or work or gambling, all of it, it's all the same. They're
mhm.
looking to suppress an emotion with external stimulus. So we go back into their own life. Where did you start these patterns? Did you pick it up in childhood? Did you learn your emotional regulation from your parents, which also didn't have the best regulation and they also learned it from the parents, right? And especially a lot of the previous generation, they had things like war, they had things like famine, a lot of things that really deeply affected them, and they just unconsciously pass it on without even realizing it. So then for you, if I may ask, where did you learn to use food for emotional coping?
Oh, that's such a good question because I think if we can't really address the root cause, we can't really heal.
Mm.
And that's a lot of the work that I have had to do over the last 5 years. Even losing the 100 pounds, being in maintenance, still some of these things come up and I have to address them as they come. But I feel like it stemmed probably from when I was a little kid. I was home alone a lot and I I just remember eating because I was alone. I know that it stems from childhood and it started in my childhood, starting to turn to food for comfort or relief or for boredom. And then the patterns just would continue. But that's such an interesting question.
It's the most important one because you learn your emotional coping before you're conscious. Your experience as a kid coming into this world, all you have is emotions. For the
Mhm.
first 7 years of your life, mostly emotions, and then your prefrontal cortex and your frontal lobes start developing, where you develop more of consciousness, memory, and things that are helping you handle life. But before that, your brain is basically coming into this world, and what's the first thing that you do? You cry. Crying gets your mom's attention. What does mom do? Mom is trying to understand what is the emotion that you're feeling so that she can meet it. And then slowly you also understand your own emotions internally and you're trying to address them. And then when you have an emotion, loneliness, boredom, shame, guilt, deeper emotions, what do? You want to solve it. A healthy child feels comfortable going to their parents, or their parents are available for them. And the parents can help them navigate these emotions, deal with them in a healthy way, get some soothing, and eventually teach them to soothe themselves. But if a child is lonely and there's no one there, what do you do? And
Yeah.
in this day and age, it's food and screens,
Yeah. Yeah. You look for the solution to that need somewhere else.
and it's instant. It's like a
Mhm.
box of crackers, completely suppressed. You don't feel a thing. I know from personal experience, most of my childhood, I would end the night in a food comatose. It was actually surprising to me in hindsight why no one was even looking at this. I would take a box of cereal, would go in the basement, I would put on Twitch TV, which maybe your audience doesn't know, but it's basically watching other people play video games. I would watch other
Right.
people play video games and just eat an entire box of cereal without milk or anything. And then I would end the night just completely in comatose and go to bed like that, and
Yeah.
night after night. And at the time, it didn't feel like I was lonely or it didn't feel like I was stressed. Do
Yeah.
you remember feeling lonely?
No, I feel like I had a really happy childhood. And I never want to criticize my parents because they were great parents. They were doing the best that they could.
Yeah.
And I'm doing the best I can with my kids. I'm sure they're still going to need therapy though, because I think it's hard as parents not to fall into shame or guilt for where we fall short. But we're all doing the best that we can. And I know my parents were too. But yeah, I don't
Mhm.
remember feeling sad or lonely.
It's not a surprise to me at all because that's what most people experience. And of course, no child, it's rare that I meet someone that says that my parents didn't try their best. In my
Mm,
own case, my mom, most of her life was a single mom. She was working 2 jobs, pursuing her PhD. She did everything she could, except she was under so much stress,
mhm,
let alone being able to handle our stress. She wasn't able to handle her own. So as a
mhm.
child, when you see your parents being stressed, you feel this guilt. You feel like I don't want to add anything on their plate. It's all happening in the background, right? Or if your parents are busy working, you don't want to cause more challenge for them. And so your brain learns from a very young age. An emotion like loneliness is very complex. How do you deal with this? I don't know. I'm just going to ignore it. And instead, I'm going to send this organism the emotion of hunger. Hunger has an instant response. Hunger, go get food, dopamine, serotonin, I feel good. And so eventually you stop feeling the other emotions. You stop feeling lonely. You stop feeling anxious. You become disconnected. You develop emotional blindness. And the only emotion you feel, which I'm sure you've experienced if you had difficulty with weight, is just at night, somehow at 8 p.m., something hits and you just can't. You have to go eat food. You can't, you lose control. And then the next day you wake up and you're like, why did that happen again? I have such little willpower. I'm gonna do everything I can to undo the damages from last night, and the cycle repeats and repeats.
Yeah,
Was that
and
your experience as well?
oh, yeah, absolutely. And as children, we aren't really able to understand what's happening. But I think these kind of conversations are so important for us as adults and as parents, especially if we're people who struggle with food addiction or with our food or our weight, that awareness is the first step. And I love learning the science behind what you're saying because once we can understand the problem, then we can address it. And understanding that it's not really just a food issue and it's not a moral failing, but if we can understand the role of environment and understand our brain's need for dopamine, for pleasure, better understand our nervous system, that is where we can really get a lot of our power to overcome these issues.
Yeah. That's the most important thing for me in my journey, and I'm sure many people listening to this. It's truly becoming aware that this was an emotional thing. Because to me, for the longest time in my own upbringing, it was a willpower thing. It's like you just have to have discipline. Losing weight is simple. Eat less than you burn. Go ahead, do it. Yeah.
And we think that there's something wrong with us or that we're weak but
Yeah.
no.
But then how is it that you see so many people who are successful and they're still overweight? How can they have willpower in one area of their life but have such difficulty in a simple thing as stop putting food in your mouth, right? And so you develop this belief that it is just a simple thing and you're supposed to figure it out. But really, I think what you're doing is bringing also awareness to what is truly the emotion that you're feeling and addressing that instead of the hunger. Because if you address the hunger, it's just like medication, it suppresses it. I'm not a big proponent. Sometimes it's useful, but anti-anxiety and even ADHD medication, it solves the problem at the surface. In ADHD, for example, you have a dopamine deficit. You just flood the brain with stimulants and dopamine, problem solved, right? The kid's going to calm down. They're not going to be so emotional or impulsive. And same thing for anxiety. You have anxiety, let's flood your brain with serotonin reuptake inhibitors and just suppress all that. But it never gives you a chance to actually address the emotion. You have anxiety for a reason. That's the most important thing to understand. Your body is giving you this emotion because it's uncertain about the future or the environment, and it's not feeling good about keeping you safe. So the emotion of anxiety comes because you have to do something. It's trying to get you to do something. And if you suppress it with food or medication, it's only going to come back. It usually comes back even stronger. That's why the cycle of binge eating is so difficult to break out of because you eat, you suppress, the emotion goes down, the next day it comes back even stronger. And then you suppress again, it comes back even stronger. But your brain, again, you're not experiencing anxiety. You're experiencing deeper and stronger hunger. And that's why you have people who develop eating disorders like bulimia. Myself, I struggle with bulimia a lot, which was crazy. I used to overeat. Then I would go in the bathroom and throw up. Then I would come back and eat the same food that I was overeating. So
Yeah.
it's how can you go through that? It's because I was so blind to my emotions that I wasn't really aware what's going on.
And what I want everyone to know is that there's hope. I never thought I would ever be able to overcome food addiction and binge eating disorder. I just felt like that was the biggest challenge in my life, but there is hope. I haven't binged, I haven't had issues for so long now, and it's been such a miracle. And I think that no matter where you are right now on your health journey, it's important for you to understand that there's hope, especially when you address the root cause behind the issue. And I'm really curious about what you were talking about with ADHD. My daughter, she was just diagnosed earlier this year with ADHD, and she's had some issues with food. And I'm curious how that plays into what we're talking about today.
Was her ADHD inattentive or hyperactive?
It was inattentive. She's like the sweet, spacey kid
Okay.
at school.
She's in her head. You have to talk to her a couple
Yeah,
times
like
to get her attention.
the daydreamer. Mhm.
Yeah, that's unfortunate because that's the one that's typically goes undiagnosed in girls because
Yes.
typically they have good grades. They don't bother anybody. They're people pleasers, but they're in their head
Yeah.
and it's hard to get their attention sometimes. How did you find out? What got you to go get a diagnosis? I'm curious.
With her, I was a little just concerned about her because her grades were low,
Okay.
and so that was the trigger. "What's going on?" She just has always had a hard time focusing. So, yeah, I would and my husband has ADHD, but his
Mm,
is so different than my daughter's, and so I thought, "She doesn't have ADHD. It's nothing like what he's experiencing." But like you said, boys and
yeah.
girls are so different sometimes in the way that ADHD shows up.
Yeah, ADHD is a broad spectrum, and to be honest with you, I don't really like labeling kids, but I love the science behind it because it made me really understand. I myself surprisingly had inattentive ADHD most of my life, but no one knew. And my experience of childhood was like, oh, I'm supposed to sit still in this classroom. There's no way I can pay attention to the teacher. I try for a minute and then I'm gone. I go in my head
Yeah.
for 10 minutes and I come back. And my experiences, to be honest with you, is still like that. If I'm watching a movie or if I'm doing something that's not engaging, I space out and I come back like 10 minutes later. I'm like, oh, I was watching a movie. No. So it's
Yeah,
just,
a lot of the things that the doctor was talking about my daughter, I'm like, "That's me." I have so many of these symptoms. I've never been diagnosed with ADHD either, but yeah, sometimes I think that it's not diagnosed.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. ADHD is very hereditary. So very likely that you have some traits of it as well. And it's often we see parents that when they come to us, it's also their kids diagnosed, but we ask them, hey, do you have any patterns that are either dopamine seeking or inattentive? And typically it's a dad who overworks and works all the time. Sometimes it's the mom. And sometimes the mom has some kind of behavior like shopping too much on Amazon or binge eating and having emotional issues with food. So it's a very interesting thing. When I discovered the connection was by surprise. I have this program for children's weight. We were running it for about a year. And then I noticed that about 4 out of 5 children in our program have some ADHD diagnosis. So, oh,
Interesting.
surprising. Why? Why is that?
Yeah.
And then I looked in deeper into it and I saw that there has been research on this showing that the rate of obesity is much higher, especially for girls, 4 times more likely to develop obesity if they have ADHD. And behind the scene, I like to make it simple. When you have ADHD, for various reasons, you have a dopamine deficit, meaning that your brain's chemical that keeps you rewarded and motivated is there's not enough of it internally. So your brain is looking for it externally. That's why your brain is scanning the environment. You're inattentive. Most things don't grab your attention, especially your daughter's probably experiencing this. Most things are just not exciting for her. They're not interesting. And so she spaces out and she's looking for something else. Sometimes in their own mind, your own mind can generate ideas and thoughts that are more interesting than the external world. But sometimes it's just external stuff like food and technology. You go eat food, instantly your brain's dopamine deficit is solved. Or you grab a phone. Does your daughter struggle with screens as well?
Oh, we're pretty good at home with screens. They don't
Okay.
watch screens during the week, but yes, when
If you give her an iPad, she's gonna get.
so yeah, it's so hard for her to regulate those.
And so it's to make it as simple as possible. It's a brain that's looking for dopamine from the external world because there's not enough internally. Now, there's deeper stuff that's related to this because there's a genetic component to ADHD and there's an emotional, environmental component. The inattentive type is typically a hyperactive amygdala, the emotional center of your brain. If you're too emotionally overwhelmed, either because you're a sensitive kid, which surprisingly I didn't realize this, but I was a sensitive kid. All the emotions of my mom and dad, I was a sponge.
Mhm.
When your amygdala is hyperactive, your frontal lobes, the part of your brain that is suppressing and controlling your emotions, gets overwhelmed. Turns out that your frontal lobes is also what's responsible for executive control, dopamine regulation, and everything we talked about earlier. So if this is overwhelmed, your frontal lobe is overwhelmed, you need fuel. Your fuel is dopamine. So you go to food and technology.
Oh, that's so interesting. How ADHD is because of a dopamine deficit. I didn't really realize that. Yeah, because it sounds like the connection between ADHD and emotional eating, it's the need to seek dopamine.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of my clients relate with that. Not eating because they're hungry, just eating for some emotional need. And
Yeah.
that's so common for us as moms, but yeah, understanding how that relates to our children as well.
And boredom is a very painful emotion. We shouldn't forget that. Most
Mhm.
people, if you ask them to sit still, they genuinely can't. And these days, most people, because we're so overstimulated, there's this process in your brain called dopamine downregulation. So
Right.
basically, you have too much dopamine from things, screens, work, food. Your brain is, hold on, that's way too much. I need to shut off some of these doors from my dopamine receptors, basically to let less dopamine in. And then now, everything in life gives you less dopamine. So you need to do more engaging activities. So, for example, if you're always on your screen and constantly scrolling TikTok, your experience of eating food, something that's healthy, is going to be miserable because you're not going to get much satisfaction from it. You're going to want the processed and the snacky food. You're going to want even more of it.
Yeah,
So
science of addiction, right? The dopamine downregulation that's why our cravings increase.
I'm so glad we're speaking the same language because it's all related. A lot of people think it's different things, but oftentimes the saddest thing is when parents come to us and their kids are adopted and they're born into this world with 4 different drugs in their system, and from a young age, they're just completely desensitized. And so, of course, they become addicted to everything that they touch, right? Anything that gives them dopamine, like food or technology, sometimes even more, they fall into it.
So how do we help our kids in our modern food environment and technology environment? What can we do as parents to support them and help them to create a healthy relationship with food and their bodies?
The first most important thing is to not put the pressure on the kid. A child's frontal lobes are only starting to develop at 7 years old and they mature in their mid. So a lot of the things about helping children with anything related to emotions or excess weight, what I find and really why I created this company is because of this. I was genuinely so upset to see that they're still after 20, like me, I'm past it. I'm no longer a kid, but they're still focused on the kid. They're still like, hey, you should be eating healthier, right? And the kids say, yeah, I know I should. Then they, like, you expect them to actually be able, like, adults can't even execute on that. You expect a kid to do it and then they fail. And then their experience of life is that they're a failure every day and they're getting so much pressure from their parents or from the doctor. So the first thing is to not put the pressure on the kid. And then as a parent, take the responsibility of being the protector. You have billions of dollars poured into the industries of screens and food to make these as addictive as possible. Trust me, I've been on the other side. I've developed games for the sole purposes of getting children to play them more. So I plead guilty on that front. But there's some of the smartest people I know are in these industries to do this. So the only chance that your child has is yourself. You're supposed to mold the environment and become the best role model you can so that your kid just naturally absorbs from you. They're a sponge. How you deal with your emotions, they're going to learn how to deal with their emotions. How you treat your body, they learn how to treat their body. Sometimes even without realizing it. It's funny. We tell parents when they start with us to just speak out loud. When you're coming back from work and you're tired, just say, "Oh, I'm so exhausted. I really want to go eat that box of cookies, but instead I'm going to go for a walk because that's going to feel better long term." You don't say
Yeah.
anything to the kid. And then the child, it's funny, like a 5-year-old will start saying, "Oh, I'm so exhausted. I'm going to go for a walk." And you're like, "What?" They pick that up.
Oh, that's so good. I love that. Because, yeah, the best way we really can help our kids is to model that behavior. And I like how you talked about not pushing them, not putting pressure or nagging them or making them feel bad for their choices. But the best ways that we can help as moms and grandmas is to just model that healthy behavior and a healthy relationship with food, how we talk about our bodies, In our home, we don't talk about the size of our bodies or anything like that. And we don't talk about losing weight or gaining weight. We just, our verbiage is more making healthy choices and so that we have good energy. But yeah, it is so challenging. But as parents, we can be the protector by creating that environment of success.
It's also a deeper understanding that everything is related to this. If you're seeing your child have excess weight, really, again, it's the symptom. There's something deeper happening. And sometimes it's a couple layers deep. Sometimes, just like I mentioned, it can become really interpersonal issues between the parents, causing stress in the entire family. And then your child, their way of dealing with it is food, right? So
Mhm.
sometimes you have to face your own demons as a mom, as a dad, as a parent. You have to come face to face with what's the environment, what's the emotional tone of the house, what is truly happening. Are you happy, or are you stressed, or are you worried? Do you have purpose? Sometimes this is the biggest thing that we work on. It's surprising. It's a weight loss program, but it's if your experience of life is just drudgery and you're going to a job that you hate and you have a life that you don't want to live, and you numb yourself with whatever your favorite poison is, what is your child learning? Again, not to make you feel guilty, but this is how can they be excited about life if you're not excited about life?
So it starts with us. It's like the way to really help our and influence our children is to meet our own emotional needs and to learn
Exactly.
how to prioritize our own needs sometimes. Sometimes as moms and parents, we put everyone's needs ahead of our own and then we're lacking what we really need emotionally. But if we can flip that, putting our needs at the top of the to-do list instead of the bottom of the to-do list, that's such a great way to model that for our children too, to teach them how to do that.
Yeah, in other words, if you're a mom listening to this, please, on the behalf of all children, give yourself the permission to take a break. Go
Yeah,
try to help yourself first. Put on your own oxygen mask before trying to help others and your kids. Because they will feel it. They are feeling your stress and your overwhelm. Whether I know you're trying your best to not have them have affected, but they are, unfortunately. They're sponges. So take
right.
care of yourself. Make sure that you're living as best of a life and happy life as you can, despite all the challenges in today's world. And then you're going to see magically your children, they're going to get better as well.
Yeah, and that's such a great analogy, the oxygen mask. We've all been on a plane and you see the flight attendant teaching you, if the plane goes down, you got to put on your oxygen mask first before you help other people. And as parents, we can often feel like that's selfish or for us to prioritize our needs, but no, it's the best gift we can give to our children and our community and the world is to be able to show up well and whole ourselves. Kami, this has been such an amazing conversation. I know that there's so many people that will be listening to this that resonate with these issues starting in their childhood or their children struggling with issues with food now. I think understanding the root cause for all of us, and whether you're an adult or you have children struggling with this, that we can understand the need to look at the root cause of what's really going on. A lot of times, physical weight is just an expression of all the emotional weight that we're carrying around. And so, meeting those needs head on, I think is hard as parents, is not feeling guilty or shame for not being perfect at this because we may have fallen short in our families. How do you avoid falling into that trap of shame and guilt as a parent?
It's very important that you mention this because that's the last thing we want either your child or the parent to feel. And it's as simple as this. Try to understand truly who you are and where your patterns came from. You were also a child once, not too long ago, actually. And your patterns and everything you've learned is just started from that little cell that you were that just accumulated and learned from its environment how to deal with stress, how to deal with life, how to deal with everything. And children is its own stress of its own. So then when the children come into play, you have even more of emotional coping and emotional strategies that just suddenly they come back. A lot of people, their experiences in my early 20s, when I didn't have kids, I had things under control. And then the kids happen, and then everything you've learned when you were younger in terms of emotional coping comes back. So you gain weight and you feel guilty about that. So just look back at who you are, and that typically helps reduce some of the guilt.
Yeah, giving yourself some grace and just knowing that past version of you was literally doing the best that they knew how to do. And that's the growth mindset, is that we can move forward. We can learn from our mistakes. We don't have to be who we've been. And that's the process of transformation. We have to just embrace who we were, and with compassion for that past version of ourselves, but just having that hope that we can change. We can create a healthier future for ourselves and our families going forward. Thank you, Kami, for coming today. It's so wonderful to talk to you. If our listeners want to work with you or learn more from you, what can they do? Where can they access your information?
So if anything here resonated, highly recommend that you go on our website at steptogether.us and read some of the profiles of either the coaches and the nutritional therapists working on the team, or the families. Because what I want to show you is that you're not alone. There's millions and millions of parents who are currently going through this now. And there are people who have gone through it and they've overcome it. And what I've simply built is a collection of people who want to help you overcome your own pain right now faster than we did. So if that's something you need help with, you can apply. You can have a free session with one of our nutritional therapists and start the journey there.
Beautiful. Yes, I'm so excited about the work that you're doing. So needed. Such a big, important topic in our society right now is the health of our children. And we thank you for coming on to our podcast today, Kami.
Erin, thank you so much for having me.
Have a wonderful day. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening today. If you enjoyed this podcast, you're going to love my coaching program. If you're struggling and want to lose weight for the last time, I can help you. Just imagine living in your goal body and having peace with food. Your success is guaranteed. To learn more about how to get support, guidance, and accountability so you can find peace with food, achieve your goal body this year, and have more energy, visit www.healthyrealfood.com. While you're there, click the link to my schedule for a free one-to-one coaching call so we can get you started on your success path. You have the power to create the life that you want. This is the year of you. I'm cheering you on. Now go win the day. You got this.